Hi guys, Central here and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be reviewing the most recent episode of Doctor Who The Flux Part 4, and we're going to be looking at the Village of Angels. Now, we're coming off of the, in my opinion at this point in time, the worst episode by a long shot Once Upon a Time, and I'm going into this one and I wasn't exactly expecting anything, but, it wasn't a poor episode. I actually quite enjoyed this one. But before we get into this, please consider liking and subscribing, as it does really help me out. And yeah, let's get into the video. So, starting off, the characters have kind of left Vinder, as in the last episode, because he's going to try to go find the woman who has appeared in the last two episodes as well. And he's gone off doing his own thing, so we're now back to Dr. Yaz and Dan, and now they've arrived in 1967 in a random village no one really knows, and they kind of keep going on in this village doing their own thing, but this is obviously because the angel took them there, not because they did it by choice than anything, but they kind of, do their own thing where they just walk around, have a look around, see what's going on. And then they the event starts to ensue. They find out that someone's gone missing. They start seeing angels popping up. Then the Doctor and Yaz and Dan split, which was interesting. So now Dan and Yaz go to investigate the disappearance of the girl, and the Doctor goes to investigate the psychic energy stuff that's going on around, and we re-meet Claire, who was in the first episode, interestingly enough, and basically the concept, the whole point with the Doctor and Claire was that Claire has a weeping angel inside her mind because it's trying to run away from the division, so we get a bit of like the Amy angel kind of stuff with the stone hands and the stuff in their eye and things like that, stuff that we saw when Amy had an angel in the mind. And yeah, I thought it worked well. It was quite building up the suspense of this character, trying to explain why this person's so important, and it felt quite satisfactory why it was so important, because basically the angel wants to escape the division, who we keep hearing pop up all the time now recently, and the division of wanting to capture this weeping angel, and this weeping angel was like, well, Doctor, I need your help, and obviously, that's why he's brought the Doctor here, not because it's trying to kill the Doctor or stop the Doctor, just wants the Doctor's help, which I thought was really interesting. I thought it was a really interesting plot point. Then moving on to what Dan and Yaz have been doing this whole time, they were basically at the beginning of the episode, well, more or less the beginning of the episode, then they split off. They got into a bit of a pickle, and they kind of got stuck with an angel, and the moon was covered, and the lights went off, and they were touched by the angels and went back to the past, 1901. They found Peggy stuck in 1901 by herself, and basically they just try and figure out what's going on, where the Doctor is, how to contact the Doctor, and the usual things that you would do as a companion trying to get back to the Doctor if you're separated. And yeah, they kind of keep going forward and go on and on until they find Peggy, who's there, and has come back in time, and apparently the angels are talking to her, telling her things, saying why they left her alone, because they want to keep survivors or something. And they talk about this, I think it's temporal extraction, where they've basically taken this part out of history, out of time, to track down this rogue angel. And then more people get snapped back in time, two old couple get snapped in time, and then we kind of get introduced a little bit more to this concept of you can't get zapped back in time more than once. So the old couple, they were sent back in time from 1967 to 1901, and they were snapped back in time again, but they just died rather than going back in time a second time, which was quite interesting, I thought. new concept, something we hadn't seen before. But I thought it worked well. I thought it was a smart way of kind of making the Weeping Angels more of a threat by any state, because I think every episode of the Weeping Angels more or less has introduced another layer to them, and I like that because it keeps them fresh, it keeps them still a threat. Though I think obviously you're eventually going to get to the point where it's going to be hard for you to manage all of those things. I think this episode suffered a little bit from the fact that Stephen Moffat created the whole concept of the image of an angel becomes itself an angel, because in this episode there was a lot of different things that were handled well, but you had like a couple of things where it's like you had the Weeping Angel in drawing, you had the TV screen watching them, and all those things meant that he kind of just had lots of things to think about and deal with, which was difficult. But overall, I thought it worked quite well. I thought that he managed to manage everything quite well. Now back to Dan and Yaz. They kind of find the edge of the village, where that edge of the village meets up with the time period that they were in originally and where the Doctor's still in. And the Doctor has escaped the Angels. Well, I say escaped in a very loose term. Her and the Professor, who I haven't mentioned, but the Professor, who has been in this episode the whole time, he doesn't really attribute much to the plot, so that's why I haven't really mentioned him, because he's kind of more of a side character. He's quite good. He's funny and interesting character, but he seems someone who just wasn't really. He's not overthought. He's not an over he's not an oversight or just a kind of last minute addition or anything. He just kind of seems a bit kind of flat in terms of doesn't really have anything to do, because except from this one personality trait of wanting to study the brain. But I mean, it's not awful. I thought it works fine. But he's now with them, and the Doctor gets out and says, "Oh, Rogue Angel, if you don't leave Claire or get out of her mind, then she'll try and help the Weeping Angels, like, not kill you." And basically, the plot twist of the story is the Rogue Weeping Angel never wanted the Doctor's help. It just realised that if it brought the Doctor to this to the certain time period with the angels chasing that particular angel, that they'd want the Doctor back, because she's like the only person on the division's list they want more as a threat than, that Rogue Angel, which I thought was that was a pretty cool plot twist. And then we get into the worst part of the episode, and that is so I said this to my friend when we were talking about it this morning, and I was like, they needed to film this scene, I think, from Dan and Yaz's perspective, watching the Doctor, maybe covering their eyes because it was so bright, something like that. But what they decided to go for was Jody Whitaker transforming into a Weeping Angel. Now, we saw this a bit with Claire earlier on, I didn't mention, but she kind of sprouted angel wings, but the Doctor gets fully transformed into an angel. Now, when you look at the kind of like makeup effects and the makeup and stuff for when she's already transformed, it looks amazing. Like, the Jodie Whittaker angel looks really cool, but the kind of like CGI effects of Jodie Whittaker becoming like a Weeping Angel slowly looks so tacky, so cheap, and I don't understand, because they've had some good effects recently. I think Jodie Whittaker's era is probably one of the best Doctor Who's ever had in terms of effects, and I think that's the only thing that's ever really been able to say, look, we're the best at this. Well, unless you count the best at being overall not great, but anyway, I think its effects and stuff has been always really good in her era, so I just don't understand why this effects was so bad. And if they shouldn't have looked at it and then, oh, that's not great, why'd you have to keep it in? Yeah, maybe you blew a bit of the budget CGIing it, but ultimately, it's not about who can blow them who can blow the most money. It's more about trying to make a satisfying story and not try and take people out of the immersion. Because the minute you stick some tacky CGI in that looks completely fake, you completely take the audience out of the immersion. But yeah, that's more or less been my review. Only thing I will say is it's 23rd of November. By the time you're watching this, Doctor Who's 58th anniversary, so 58 years since it was last transmissioned, or first transmissioned in 1963. Pretty cool milestone. 2 years off 70. Well, 70. 2 years off 60, sorry. So I can't wait for the 60th anniversary and stuff. But it'd be an interesting 2 year test for Doctor Who. I think it was probably changed quite a lot within those 2 years. But yeah. And on the final note, in Village of Angels, pretty decent story. Give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. It's good. I think apart from Once Upon a Time, the other three stories have actually been kind of just pretty decent. They've not been amazing. Like, you've had some good ones. War of Centaurans was great. I thought the first one, Halloween Apocalypse, was pretty good, but they haven't been really bad and they haven't been amazing. But they've just been kind of quite good. But yeah, if you have enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, as it does help me out. But yeah, see ya.